A research project that requires me to look up all of the ballot measures that were on the state ballots essentially since the measurement of state ballots existed and see what percentage of those were approved. You can see here in 2022 on Ballotpedia that this is listed 140 statewide ballot measures, 96 of them were approved. However, in some other examples, such as I believe it was 2018, there is not the approval rate. So we have a total of 167 statewide ballot measures, and it doesn't say what that total amount is. In order to find that, I would have to go down and hand count, essentially open up an Excel file or a Google Sheet file on a different window and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and which ones were approved, which ones weren't. So you could imagine that would be a tedious task. So I taught myself how to do web scraping, and I wanted to show this because it's a really valuable time saver to not go crazy. So before I do it on 2018, because there's no way to check my work here, I'm going to go back to 2022 and use the web scraper to count up the number of statewide ballots and those that were approved and see if the work that I do comes out to 140 statewide ballot measures, with 96 of them being approved. So the tool that I am going to use is Web Scraper, and this is a free tool. There's a paid version, of course, but you see you could install a Chrome plugin for free. So I have already installed that Chrome plugin. This is not it. This is another plugin. I'm just going to close so that we're not confused. So I've already installed that Chrome plugin. I will go back to ballot measures, and you can see here on my plugins, Zotero's, for any researchers, is another great one, but different. So you can see I already have that installed and it has access. So what I will do now is I will press, I think this is correct, Command Option I, and that pulls up this menu of how the website is actually made. Don't let this scare you if you're not used to it. I'm semi-comfortable with HTML, but I'm by no means a coder or web developer, so don't think that you have to understand what this language is. You don't. When you open up the tool, you might see that it is up here. I just changed the screen and you can see like this element up here. And if you try to find Web Scraper, it'll say you have to use it on the bottom of the dock. So to do that, you click on these three arrows on the bottom icon, and now there's Web Scraper. So what I'm going to do is I will create a new sitemap. This one, I already did it before to make sure it worked, so I'm going to do it again. I'm going to create a new sitemap, create a sitemap. I'm going to call it 2022 ballot measures. And the URL, I'm going to just copy and paste and create sitemap. So now in this sitemap, I'm going to close the advertisement. I want to make a new selector. So I go to new selector. I'm going to scroll down to the data tables I have to add up. So starting here at Alabama, I've got to add all these up. So this is a name I'm going to create for the selector ID. So I'll say measure by state, and you have to use a hyphen if you have spaces between words. The type of element it is that I am gathering is a table. And now I'm going to select the element. So I'm clicking on select, I click on table, and you see it's in red, so it sees that. It's identifying that information. I'm going to hold down the shift key and click on this one. Hold down the Shift key, click on this one. Hold down Shift, click on this. And now you can see that the rest of them have been selected. So I will now click on Done Selecting. Well, let's just scroll down to make sure. So Kentucky, Maryland, Montana, Nevada, and you can see if I had to do this by hand, what a time suck that would be. So great, they've all been selected. Now you do see their local ballot measures. I don't want to count that. I can't figure out how to unclick this. So I'll just have to adjust for that when we get the Google Sheet. So I'm gonna click Done Selecting, Save Selector. Now I go to Data Preview, and you can see here are all of these propositions on rows. So now it's all those separate tables are on one table. So I can just on a sheet count the number of rows, and then I can count the occurrences of the result A, because result A means that there's a check mark, it was accepted. When there's no result A, that's an X, meaning it's not accepted. So that's how I can do my count. So now I'm gonna just hold down Command A, I'm using a Mac, to select all, Command C to copy, go to a new spreadsheet, Command Paste, boom. I'll just clean this up by deleting these rows. And now, this is where I said I've got to go back and think about the ones that are local. So I'm gonna open this up, just take a look at the last thing. I can close this now. So I'm gonna take a look at the last state measure, which is Constitutional Amendment B, increasing the judicial retirement age. So I've got to scroll down to Constitutional Amendment B, increasing judicial retirement age. So now all of these after that, I'm just going to delete those. I'm going to scroll up and see how many rows we have. The count is 141, and that confirms, let me scroll up here to the top. That confirms this information. There were 140 statewide ballot measures. Here we've counted the rows are 140. And now how many were approved? I'm gonna scroll, click on the top and then drag down to the very bottom row. And there were 96 that were approved. And that confirms with this information here, 96. So now I can go to another ballot measure listing, like for example, before 2008, it wasn't done. So if I wanted to go ballot measures in 1950, I can do the same exact thing on this. I can just do that same process. I can get those tables and I can see in 1950 how many ballot measures were there and how many were approved. So that is a video of how to use a web scraping tool to count things specifically here on Ballotpedia, but also you could use it for your own purposes. If you do any kind of work that requires data processing and dread the manual data entry, I highly recommend teaching yourself how to do web scraping.